Where was the water coming from? I had just replaced the leaking expansion tank, and days later a new stain appeared in front of the bumper. The only thing to do was to start looking under the hood for the new leak. And there it was. At the base of the radiator, it was wet all along the bottom of the fan shroud. It was time to put the car up in the air, insert some jack stands, and remove the engine under tray. The radiator is held at the top by these two clips, but I have to start by removing the air cleaner tube. I would have to pop out these two plastic trim plugs to remove the air intake by the radiator. I got a large plastic tub, which I shoved underneath, and started by taking the clamp off the lowest hose to the expansion tank. While that was draining, I took the plastic cover off the top and started removing the other clamps and hoses. The top main hose connects to the thermostat housing just above the water pump. The connection is a plastic piece, so I had to be careful not to crack it pulling the hose off. Next to go is the two-piece fan shroud, the loop clamp, and the inner ring. And then these small metal clips that hold the square main shroud. Once these were out of the way, I could remove the 10mm bolt and bracket that holds the transmission cooler line at the base of the radiator. That rusty line looks like a future project right there. I'm going to need new clamps all around. Next to come off are the two metal lines for the transmission cooler. The upper one is a banjo type fitting that uses a special 19mm hollow bolt. Make sure to drop at least one washer like I did so you can crawl around on the floor looking for it. The bolt itself is pretty interesting. It's hollow with two ports on the shank. A pair of crush washers complete the seal, one under the head, the other between the line and the cooler, sandwiching the line fitting in between. The lower cooler line is a simple flare nut fitting that comes off with an open-end wrench. The air-conditioning condenser is held in front of the radiator by these three 10mm bolts at the top. The edge of the radiator support makes it too tight for a socket, but it is a perfect spot for ratcheting wrenches. Their thin profile gets them into tight spots and really speeds things up. With the hoses and shrouds off, the radiator looks ready to lift straight out as soon as I remove these two clips. Surprise! Wrong answer. It turns out that on both sides of the bottom of the condenser are these sheet metal tabs. On the outside of the radiator that's facing the front of the car, there's actually these plastic molded in clips that are going to hook underneath the condenser. You'll need these rubber inserts on the edge of the condenser because that's just a sheet metal piece, but they will slip in here and hold the condenser. This is a pipe for the condenser for the air conditioner, and there's a bracket right here. This is an 8mm bolt, and what I did was I loosened this bracket just enough so that I would be able to lift this up a little more. And by moving that much motion, gave me the space to get the condenser up out of the slots in the bottom of the radiator. With the radiator now out, I can see where the small pinhole leak is. It was actually no problem as long as the expansion tank was leaking. But as soon as the system could hold normal pressure, the fragile old tubes just let go. I decided to give myself a little more space to work before trying to maneuver the new radiator in place. So off came the 3 bolts holding the cooling fan. Besides the new radiator, I bought 3 new hoses and the clamps to go with them. The radiator itself is an original equipment version from the factory vendor. Just like the one coming out, it is made of aluminum tubes and fins attached to plastic side tanks. It has the shroud attachment tabs and pre-tapped hole for the cooling line bracket. I like that all the plastic hose connections have internal metal rings to prevent the hose clamps from cracking the plastic. In order to get it into this clip, you've got to be very low. But in order to get these posts to match up with the car body, you've got to be a lot higher. So somewheres in between here is where you're going to find a happy medium between the condenser and the body frame. I can't exaggerate how frustrating I found it to try to wiggle the radiator below the condenser, yet above the 2 posts and the low radiator support. It finally did go in, and I simply went back around, attaching the hoses and the lines in the reverse order that I took them off. The 2-piece plastic shroud needed a little finesse to get both of the plastic tabs into the slots at the same time. Soon the tabs were in, and the upper clips sealed the deal. As I got out my funnel and my jug of 50-50 coolant mix to top everything up, I really hoped I was done with cooling system problems for a while. The original parts had lasted 26 years and 194,000 miles, and I hope that these will last as long. With a new expansion tank, radiator, and hoses, I was finished with coolant leaks. Or was I?